Perfect. I see there's a hand up already. Alwyn?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for joining. Good morning. So we're just going to start now in a minute. I see there's a lot of... I'm just going to mute you, Alwyn, on your side. Just some housekeeping rules. The presenters will just have their cameras on during the duration of the session, and we will share the recordings and everything. So this meeting is being recorded. The rules of conduct as per our HWC engagements, as per our agendas apply. We are going to keep everyone's questions to the end of the session. We may find that as the presenters do their presentations, that you will find some clarity as we go in along. So this is our very first webinar session that we're having in collaboration with SAHRA, who has greatly assisted HWC in its transition over to the SAHRIS platform. It was officially soft launched this year, and as of September, we are fully functioning as for our Section 38 processes for the NID applications on the SAHRIS system. So my name is Wasifa Danse. I'll be your moderator for this session. I have a few of my colleagues in attendance as well. Not to belabor and take up some time, we're only going to limit the presentations to those who are presenting. I'll start with Ruan, if you could just introduce yourself, and then followed by Jake.
Thank you for the quick introduction there, Wasifa. So yes, I'm Ron Brunt. I have been at Heritage Western Cape for just over a year now, but previously I worked at SAHRA, and I was part of the sort of officer team at SAHRA that tested the sort of SAHRIS 2.0. So it was a good timing for me to come to Heritage Western Cape, and I've been quite heavily involved in the process of trying to get HWC onto SAHRIS. And I'm employed at HWC as a specialist heritage officer, and I hope that I can guide you a bit today in terms of making SAHRIS seem a bit more friendly. Thank you, Wasifa.
Jake?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jake Harding. I'm the manager for the National Inventory Unit at SAHRA. The NIU, among other things, is responsible for running SAHRIS. So if you have any questions going forward from today's process or with your engagements with the system, we're the point of call for that. So yeah, hi.
Thank you, Jake. Thank you, Ruan. And just appreciation to Jake. SAHRA is having the Heritage Week webinars, and his team is actually doing the NIU section today, but he has graciously offered to attend our one and be present for any questions you may have at the end of our session today. So there's a short program. It's a lot of demonstrations that are going to be taking place. Section 1 consists of the purpose and overview of the presentations that we have today for the webinar. And then HWC's move to SAHRIS. That will be facilitated by myself. Section 2, Jake will do some brief overview as to the national state of SAHRA in general and its integration to SAHRIS and how we are where we are today with the platform itself and its future development launches. And then Ruan will take us through the basic functions of SAHRIS. That's the user registration. And I think he'll take a minute just for everyone who is not yet on the system to show you just how easy and quick the registration can be. We can do a live one for that. It'll be under a minute of that session. And then the resources available, that includes the mapping systems, your fossil finds, any paleo sensitivity maps and those sites that are available, the gradings, where to find them, any other resources, the dashboards, what they have, and the basic application oversight. And then we'll just have a short comfort break. We are going to just record this so that we can have a bit of a transition for those who need to step out. There is a recording going to be made available. Then the section 4.1 is the detailed application demonstration part. where Ruan will be taking you through step by step how to make the application to HWC with the SAHRIS system. It will be quite a detailed explanation along with a checklist. For those who have used SAHRIS before and have been taken over from the HWC one, you'll see there has been a lot of changes to what HWC's format is compared to the SAHRIS one. So we just want to speak you through that. And those who are new to it, you're more than welcome to have the fresh perspective of the usability of the system for you. And then I'll close off with the future of HWC applications, and then we'll open up the floor to any questions that you may have for the panel. If you have any questions along the way, you can drop them in the chat and we will respond to them afterwards. If you don't have functions to the chat, you're more than welcome to contact us directly afterwards as well, and we can communicate with you. I think everyone on this platform does have our direct details as well. But you are welcome to contact us. So just again, please do keep your cameras off and your mics on mute for the duration of this purpose. We are going to release the recordings and we don't have the abilities to filter out any unintended noise. I'll be putting my camera off just for bandwidth purposes, but I'll go into section 1 as per our program. So who are we as Heritage Western Cape? We are the PRA within the Western Cape Province. That's the Provincial Heritage Resources Authority. Our aim is to identify heritage resources across the Western Cape. We manage heritage protection processes and their applications. We register significant sites for formal protections, and we protect and conserve heritage resources for future generations. There's various criteria that we use for this determination and the assessment thereof. That's the historical, architectural, aesthetic, cultural, and contextual, social, scientific, spiritual, linguistic, natural, technological, or landmark values that attribute to the significance in terms of heritage for the province. We have a legal framework that we are mandated by, that is the Constitution of South Africa, the Western Cape Provincial Constitution, and the National Heritage Resources Act, and these are amongst all other legislations as well. So for those who have been familiar with the current NID application process, this is a high level how the Section 38 process works, and there's various processes within the system. The Section 38 process that we are zooming in on today will regulate the processes for you and may affect heritage resources, ensuring that heritage protection prior to, during, and implementation of the development. So this is our standard current workflow for the NID submissions to HWC. You may have steps in here that are no longer applicable if the NID is submitted to us and there's no further studies required. However, if there is further studies in terms of a heritage impact assessment required, you would then require further detailing. But I'm not going to go and unpack this today. I think we can have a separate general discussion about Section 38 and the cultural landscapes and all the work plans as a professional after this. But this is just so you can see that there is various steps within a NID process upon submission to HWC. So the context of how we got to this process of getting onto SAHRIS is quite a lengthy journey, and I'm just going to give you a quick summation of that. We can talk forever about the inadequacies and red tape that HWC has been experiencing over the years and trying to make use of a system that was a manual system before COVID started. You remember coming to our offices and getting a reference number, going to make payment, and then delivering your hard copy to us. I think it was 3 or 4 copies of an application as well. So that's no longer applicable since COVID. We then transformed into our administrative email that you now email the links through. But we understand that that also had its challenges and difficulties. The emails were too big, or we were unable to access links, etc. and we assume that we have it, and then there's a lot of conflict between ourselves and the applicant, where the assumption is we have an application and we don't have an application. And we realize that there is ways of making the system more better for us. We underwent a process called lean management. A few of you have heard this term being utilized by HWC quite a lot, because it's really become a way of life for officials in terms of our workflow. How do we improve on ourselves to make our services and be more citizen-centric to the public? And how do we make our processes internally as efficient for us? And we really went through our first exercise within the lean process, hosted through the Graduate School of Business with UCT, was a review of our applications times, and that was the general section 34 applications. And it really unpacked our all our wastages in there. What is value adding to you as a client? What is value adding to us as officials? And really map that out. And you could see in that process where there's a lot of wastage in terms of time. We also further looked at what is the queries beyond sitting in meetings and reviewing the cases and engaging with the public. What are our queries that we get that seems to be the common ones? It's where do I get the application form? What is my trigger? What is the streetscape photos? So we understood that there's obviously a shortage of understanding of our requirements, and we need to build a system that is user-friendly for the public so that we can eliminate that time that we are spending on responding to those types of questions that to us seems like normal. Oh, this is what an SG or a streetscape photo should look like because we understand it and deal with it. But first time or second time applicants don't really know that. So the question marks at what takes up our time also came into play. And we realized in that process that there is a system there and it's called SAHRIS. Let's use it. So the SAHRIS talk has been with HWC for as long as I can remember, and that's for just over 10 years now. And during this lean system, we really thought that we need to just go for it with a lot of pressure, I'll say, from the team at SAHRA who wanted HWC onto the system. We just dove into working with it. And I must say, from an HWC perspective, it is really the staff who have built the system in terms of what it is today, worked along with the soft launch process that we went through earlier this year, getting the feedback from those users who did submit applications and really tweaked it to ensure that your usability on the system is much better than what you've experienced, because we know the system was not usable to everybody from our side as well. So thank you, Jake and Team Clinton, for really taking those comments into consideration and being able to produce the system that we have today. So our move to SAHRIS happened earlier this year with that soft launch that I mentioned with our Section 38 applications. So SAHRIS is the national platform for heritage resource management that provides a unified approach to heritage protection. And like I said, why this transition happened? The move to SAHRIS enables standardized processes across heritage authorities, integrates national systems and databases, and improves efficiency in application processing. So all of those things between Jake and Ruan, when they do their demonstration, will be unpacked to show you exactly those functions. So there's the elimination of requesting a reference number, waiting for HWC to respond in order for you to make your payment. There's no longer waiting that 48 hours of acknowledgement. Once it's been loaded to the system, you have confirmation it's been loaded. Immediate, once it's been, a case officer has been allocated, you get those things. So the automation of it eliminates you having to also ask us questions and the waiting of a response and that lag time that happened for that. So SAHRIS enables you to have real-time tracking of heritage resources and promotes transparency, providing open public access for information. And it's a heritage management system tool for you ultimately. It's not just for HWC, it is for you when you're making any applications within South Africa. You can then, there's case data that you can review. We know that there is a bit of a lag in terms of transferring of data, historical data, onto the new platform, but that's been worked on. And through HWC, our records are not all on SAHRIS, so you still have to go through a PIA process to request the information. So if you're playing around with the system, that everyone's going to show you where to search in that, and nothing for your site appears, please ask us. We may have it within our registry system that we can still send to you electronically via the PIA system. So this is just an overview of where we are, and I'll hand over to Jake, to deal with the national perspective of heritage resources and SAHRIS usability for the system.
Can everyone see my screen okay?
Perfect. Thanks, Jake.
Great. Good morning, everyone. As I said before, my name is Jake Harding. I'm the manager for the National Inventory Unit at SAHRA. The NIU is responsible for the inventory of the national estate, which is essentially the structured database for heritage resources in South Africa. And in line with that, we're also responsible for the South African Heritage Resources Information System, which is quite a mouthful, so SAHRIS. And SAHRIS acts as, among other things, the home for the inventory of the national estate. Now, what I'm going to do is I'd like to talk just briefly about the system first, and then we'll talk about the impact that has on the inventory. So SAHRIS as a system integrates 3 primary functions, and each one of these is interconnected and serves to enrich and build on the utility of the system. So the first one listed here is as a heritage site repository, and what this is essentially a industry best practice means to capture structured data around heritage sites. And the intention with this is in order to be able to effectively characterize and to describe heritage resources, but to do so in a structured data sense. And what I mean by structured data is in a sense where you don't need to go and sift through reports and PDFs, etc., but rather that you can search things specifically in the database, and you can either partition into categories or locations or something of that nature. The second function is as a collections management system. This is predominantly towards the object-facing side of the system and is a tool designed for museums. However, it is also something that can be built into other heritage resource management processes. And then the final and probably the most interesting for you is the integrated heritage management system. And this is the aspect of the system where SAHRIS acts as the primary portal for heritage-facing applications. And currently the system is utilized by SAHRA as the national regulatory body. It's used by MAFA and KZN. It's used by Eastern Cape Pro. And as Wasifa said, and the reason we're here today is that HWC has started moving their processes onto the system as well. So starting with Section 38 and in the future moving to other applications as well. Now, in terms of the heritage sites, so heritage sites are able to be captured in a number of different ways and can be characterized depending on the nuances of the resources in question. These can be created individually, and these are just some snapshots into showing how the information is captured. So using something, if you look at the screen grab on the top left, you have a web form that allows you to capture and characterize the heritage resource in question. As part of that process, you can then also upload any spatial data, or you can create the spatial data on system. Once the site is created, if you look in the top right-hand corner, this is an example of how the information is presented on system. And it's got a number of different kind of key information. So you've got the inventory number, which is a unique identifier that is derived from the mapping location. You've got things like the site names and site categories, which allows people to find the resources or resource types that they're looking for if they're looking to query the database for a resource or for a management purpose. And then under general descriptions, you can also get site significance, history, that sort of information. If you look on the right-hand side of that screen, there's the boundary of the resource in question, and depending on how the resource is captured, if it's got a site address. So in this instance, Palmerston School has an address, and so that's captured. Obviously, you know, an archaeological site in the middle of nowhere doesn't necessarily have a street address, but we're still able to capture that other resource mapping. And then if you look at the top of that, there's location, gradings, declarations, and media. And these are other types of information that are captured around specific resources. And so this means that when you're looking at a resource, you're able to see not just the particulars of the resource itself, but you can also see the management processes. So any gradings, declarations, images, and if there are publicly visible conservation plans, etc., those can also be accessed through the system. For museums and objects collections, the system works very similarly. You're also able to capture and characterize heritage resources based on their particulars, and you're able to then search through, if you look in the bottom left-hand image, is a screenshot of the kinds of tables that you can use to query the database and to find the resources in question. And this is a mechanism that is common between museum objects and heritage resource sites. You can also assign the resources to particular groups. So the top right-hand corner is a screenshot of a collection that is tied to Iziko museums. This is something that you can do not just with museum objects, but again with sites and other kinds of resources, which means that if you have a conservation body or a research group that is working on a collection of sites, they're able to keep that those resources in kind of a curated collection so that it's easy for them to monitor and to access. And then also one of the systems that we've built in is the ability to generate a PDF report that pulls out some of the particulars of the resource in question. And this is something that functions for both the sites and for the objects as well. And then for the heritage resource management, and again, I think this is the one that's more interesting. So if you look on the left-hand side, this is a screen grab from one of AMAFA's application forms. As I mentioned, the system is currently used by SAHRA, AMAFA, ECPRA, and HWC have now moved their Section 38 processes onto the system. And the intention here is that the application forms allow for the capture of all of the relevant information within that application into a structured database right out of the gate. And so this means that it is very easy to then build the necessary tools to allow the processing heritage officers to access particular information. And there's two sides to this. So the one side is that it allows the officers to more readily access the information and to find what it is that they're looking for, but it also allows us, and I'll speak to this shortly, it allows us to be able to see general trends within the industry. And so this means that when you're trying to generate reporting in order to inform planning, inform strategy, inform policy, it means that there's a very reduced need to sift through piles of heritage reports, and instead you're able to just pull that information straight out of the application. So the screenshot that you see on the center top is an example of an application, and this is something that is then visible to the heritage officer. And it captures some vital statistics right on its face. And these are things such as the unique identifiers, case ID, the case title, the assigned heritage authority, and then the nature of the different applications that are pulled into this. And this is something that Rowan will talk to later, as well as any relevant heritage reports and mapping that was associated with the application. Now, as part of this and to assist with responsive case tracking to applications that come in on the system, users on SAHRIS have access to dashboards. And so you have the applicant dashboard, which will be kind of your one-stop shop for all of your applications tracking. And a heritage officer has very much the same. And so these mechanisms allow the user to see the cases that either they have generated or assigned to them, as well as changes and updates to that case. In addition to all of these applications, the system also securely stores any associated uploaded documents. These might be supporting documentation as part of your application. It might be heritage reports, but it will also be the documentation in terms of permitting, letters, decisions, etc. Now, just something I would like to note with this is that SAHRIS, the new version of SAHRIS, was specifically built to structurally protect your information. And so without the necessary permissions, which are granted only through the necessary heritage authority and the actions of the NIU within SAHRA, it means that you will never see your secure documentation captured within your application, including the uploaded documents, present on something like Google or in any of the different search engines. And this is something that we were very, very attentive of when we were redesigning the system and launched it last year, to ensure that any sensitive information that you have that is captured within your documentation or within your application is not visible beyond the necessary bounds for the management of that application. So in terms of the work that we've been doing with SAHRIS, this is all done as part of the Heritage Resources Management Coordination Plan. And the HRMCP is essentially a strategy and policy document that SAHRA generated 3 years ago. And the intention is to help to make sure that all of the different efforts within the agency and within the other heritage entities is all pulling in the same direction and adding value to each other. Now, where this ties in with SAHRIS is one of our efforts is to increase the adoption and utilization of SAHRIS by the PRAs, as well as other state bodies, in order to improve the efficiency and accuracy of heritage resource management and protection in the country. And so what we mean by that is it helps to facilitate the more efficient processing of applications for the different provincial authorities. However, moving forward, the advantage with this is that the applications that come in through SAHRIS generate heritage resource data within the system. And therefore, the more applications that we receive through the system, the better and more enriched the inventory of the national estate becomes. And therefore, the more PRAs and the more state bodies that utilize the system, the greater that data set. And it becomes this virtuous cycle where by increasing and enriching the inventory, we're able to have a better complete perspective on the nature of heritage resources in South Africa. And therefore, we're able to take that to speak to strategy, to speak to decision-making, to speak to policy. Speaking of the inventory of the national estates, so I'd just like to speak for a moment on the mechanisms and the utilities. So in terms of its creation and its compilation, the concept is that even on our best day, the NIU is 6 people. And my team works very hard, but there's a lot more heritage resources out there than 6 can manage. And so in terms of structure, the idea is that while we also add and do projects that both add to grow and enrich the inventory, the intention has always been to have the data generated by those that are responsible for it. And so the mechanisms for that are to have communities and interested stakeholders who then engage with local authorities, who then engage with provincial authorities, and so having that data kind of uplifted and moved through into the inventory, as well as other stakeholder groups such as other government entities, museums, universities, researchers, etc. Now, in terms of the outcomes, some of the things that we generate are analytics in order to get a better understanding of the state of the inventory and therefore heritage resources in South Africa. Because there has never been a full national scale scope survey of all of the heritage resources in the country, this is always an ongoing project. And so you can see that there's certain drifts that show the, let's call it, interest of the actors within a heritage space. And so if you look here, there's there's the capture of national heritage sites, and there's a preponderance of certain heritage resource types that are present. And this doesn't necessarily reflect the actual on the ground percentage of heritage resources in the country. In this instance, it's an example of the declared resources and the efforts from SAHRA to diversify the declared resources within the inventory. Now, this is another example. We also capture the information in terms of the way that we classify and capture objects, and it's an ongoing project in partnership with museums, and it's something that we work very closely with certain partner institutions, and we're always looking to speak to and to engage with other entities to get more data in order to get a better understanding of heritage resources in South Africa. Now, one of the things that's useful with the reporting is being able to generate something where it's heritage by numbers. And so you can see here you've got on the left is a pie chart of all of the heritage resources in the country broken down by category. And what you can see there is that there is a large over-representation of built environment and archaeological resources. And part of this is to do with the prior establishment's interest in those sorts of aspects, but also in terms of the nature of the professionals working within the heritage sector, and therefore the research and the data that is generated skews in that direction. And so this is why we're constantly working to try and increase the amount of engagement when it comes to heritage management applications in order to generate kind of scope surveys of areas of the country in order to build and to diversify the resources captured on the inventory. On the right is just a simple column graph that shows kind of the efforts to add national heritage sites to the inventory since the inception of the NARA, and you can see that the colors in there represent the different categories that have been added and the efforts to add diversity to the inventory. Now, in the Western Cape context, something else that we're able to pull from the system, again in reporting, is to keep track of the different provincial heritage sites that are declared year on year. And you can see kind of the efforts both pre-NARA and since the inception of Heritage Western Cape, and the difference in terms of efforts to diversify and to have a more reflective inventory or representation within the inventory of provincial heritage sites within the Western Cape. And the column graph on the right kind of shows those efforts year on year. So all of this information, one of the ways in which it's used is to create a report, which is the summary and analysis of the inventory of the national estate. This is a report that is compiled by the NIU in partnership with key users of the system, both within SAHRA and within the provincial authorities, and it is intended as a snapshot of the state of the inventory every year. And so the nature of this report is partly the heritage by numbers, but it's also meant to represent the work that the PRAs are doing to build on the inventory, and not just to build on the inventory from a representational standpoint, but also, again, to build it and enrich it as a resource for the management of heritage resources within the provinces and within the country. So within the data that's captured in the inventory, it also allows for a number of different useful tools. One of those is in terms of the mapping of heritage resources. And so it allows an at-a-glance kind of capture of all of the resources within a particular area. One of the things that we've been working on very closely with the new iteration of SAHRIS is to build out the functions of the mapping. And so at the moment, it's very good at mapping national and provincial heritage sites. It's very good at allowing you to find and map out specific heritage resources. But there are a number of different tools that we're looking to in the future once we move on to the new code base in the first week of next month to begin looking at ways that the tools, the mapping tools, become more interactive and can be used as a pipeline to facilitate people to engage with their heritage, either just from an interest or from a research standpoint, but also from an applications and heritage resource management standpoint. And so with the mapping of the data, this is just a time lapse of the data that's been added to the inventory. And you can see that certain areas are better represented than others. And this again shows in terms of the kinds of engagement that we get from different entities, be they the provincial authorities or other state entities or interested community groups, museums, universities, etc. And the intention with this, the intention with SAHRIS as the repository for the inventory of the national estate is to eventually have a full representation of all heritage resources within the country to create an absolute certainty when making decisions around heritage resource management, when around development applications, around strategy and planning. And so as we move forward, it is about a partnership between the different units within SAHRA and that are responsible for SAHRIS, in partnership with the different provincial authorities, in partnership with their various application and stakeholder groups, in order to get all of that information as represented onto the inventory as possible, because every piece of information that is added to the inventory helps to inform and add surety to the decisions that are taken going forward. In terms of those kinds of decision making, it's 2025. We live in a world that is run on data, and heritage is no different. And SAHRIS is the primary thrust and the best avenue in order to inform that kind of decision making. And so there's a lot of utility that comes out of the inventory data that is created. You can use things like risk modeling when you think to the coming up with disaster management plans around fire in the Western Cape, flooding in KZN, things of that nature. Further, you're able to then use that to plug into other impact analysis, be it environmental or disaster. It also means, as I've said before, around database decision making. It means that you're able to have a firm understanding of what it is that you're working around, be it underground, be it on the surface. And so it means that you're able to have more surety, and you're also able to better plan and scope and assess the processes that are going forward. And then also to establish management baselines. So one of the things that we use the system for is for consistent reporting on the management of different heritage resources. And by having all of that data captured in a structured sense, it means that the management of those resources is very easy to track, and we're able to run analytics on those a lot better. And that's it from my side. I'd just like to take a moment to say that myself and the team, one of the primary components of our mandate is to act as the help desk and training function for SAHRIS. So anyone that comes away with further questions, who would like to have further training or engagement on the system, or if you come up against particular challenges on the system, please don't hesitate to contact me. Don't hesitate to contact my team. We are always eager and available to help. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jake. Very, very informative. Oh, I've learned this presentation so many times, but every time I find something fascinating again. I see there are some hands up. At the start of the session, you may not have heard, we're only going to take questions afterwards when we're done with the overall session. We're going to do section 3 now, which is the basic SAHRIS functions. Ruan's going to take you through the actual system itself, registration, SAHRIS resources, the mapping and sites, dashboards, and a basic application oversight. As mentioned before, if you've not yet registered, now would be a good time to log on to SAHRIS, and Ruan will show you exactly how to register. Within a minute, you'll be able to have your profile and maybe play along the system as you're going about. Ruan, if you are ready, you're welcome to start your section.
Thank you for that, Musifa. I just want to confirm that everybody can see the screen showing SAHRIS. If I could just get a thumbs up.
Perfect. Thank you. And audio.
Thank you very much. So just to say again, thank you to Jake and the NIU team. They've been fantastic in helping us transition onto the system as well. And Jake's presentation there really provided that backdrop from the national side in terms of how the system is just sort of moving forward with heritage management. I've had a chance to look through the participants today, and there are nearly 200 of you, so thank you so much for joining us. And the kind of people here today vary in terms of where they're coming from. I've seen quite a few EAPs that have joined us. I've seen heritage practitioners. I've seen people that I've never heard of before as well. I even see people from other heritage resources agencies. I see quite a few people from the city of Cape Town here. So just thank you to all of you for joining us. And I hope that what I'm going to be doing now is something a bit more on the ground. It's a bit more focused on what it actually looks like to interact with the system. So for those of us that work with the system every day, be they case officers or be they heritage practitioners or simply EAPs who want some oversight in terms of perhaps where their projects are with the heritage management approval stuff, yeah, there's just a chance to show all of that. I'm going to take it quite slow and be very intentional with the way that I conduct this demonstration. As I said, some of you know exactly how to use the system. Some of you might actually know how to use the system better than the way that I use it. But there are others that this might be their first experience of actually seeing the system. So please just bear with us as we have quite a variety of experience here. But as Wasifa said, we'll start with just the basic registration process. So this is SAHRIS. I'm just going to log out so that you'll see if you just go to sahris.org.za, so just the SAHRIS website, you'll get to this sort of landing page, and then there is the registration button. If any of you want to follow along, some of you might have second screens, please do so. I highly recommend just using this time to register so that you become an active user and you can play along with me, because I like to learn by doing, and I hope that this is a chance for you to also do that. So if you click on register, it takes you to this quick little create new account section. You do not need to fill in everything here. The most important stuff to fill in right now would be your email address. And this is an email address that you have access to right now, because when you actually register, there will be a link sent to that email address that you need to click. So if you just fill in your email address here, and I'll just do something like this. And then for your username, my recommendation is to type your name. So for me, it would be Ron, and then do it .brand and .applicant. I find this to be quite a useful way of just keeping track. I have multiple profiles on the system because of testing reasons. So just put your name .applicant. It's quite a simple username. A lot of people do this. You can also, if it is your very first time, maybe just keep it as your name. Then from profile side, you don't need to upload a picture right now. You can just quickly type a prefix if you want, but the most important thing here is your full name. Because of the system, the way the system works, we just need an email address, a username, and a full name. So if you just type in your full name, again, you can leave most of these other things blank. You do not need to fill any of this stuff in. So if you now have your email address, your username, and your full name typed in, you should be able to go down here and simply click on the CAPTCHA that I'm not a robot. You might be tasked with filling in a little CAPTCHA if the system's not used to you. Luckily, I filled in a few of these now, so the system thinks I'm not a robot anymore. And then you can click on Create New Account. As soon as you click on Create New Account, if there is an error, the error message will guide you to what you need to fix. It might be that the username already exists or the email address already exists. But yeah, you can just quickly click that, and it will send an email to your email address that you provided at the top. And then if you go to that email and you click on that link, you'll be allowed to create your password and you have access to the system. So I'll just give those of you that are actually registering and doing this right now just 2 minutes to quickly do that. But yeah, if any of you are encountering errors with this, there should be a warning message guiding you as to what the errors are. But SAHRIS has this functionality where there's little red asterisks wherever something is needed to continue with filling something in. So here you can see it's the email address, the username, and under profile, the important thing that you need to fill in is the full name. So I assume that most of you have done that by now and that you're in your email addresses and just clicking those confirmation links now and creating your passwords. You can always edit and change this information afterwards, so don't worry about it too much. So I hope that most of you are there now. I'm just going to continue on with how we're interacting with the system. So once you are logged in, or you are at the point where you are able to log in, instead of clicking register, you'll click on log in. And here you can just fill in your username and your password. I just have them automatically saved to my profile here, so it auto-populates. And a lot of people make this mistake. It's a visual thing just to note. It's something to get used to on SAHRIS right now. Once you fill this in, before you actually click login, you'll see I haven't clicked this captcha yet. So if I click login, I'll get this error message that tells me, oh, I need to fill in the captcha. So you can just quickly fill in that captcha. And logically, people often go down to create a new account. Please try not to do that, because then you'll just get chucked backwards again. It's just this captcha below the login that you need to fill in, and then you can click on login. So again, I'm just going to give everybody a second to type in their things so that they can get logged into the system. Okay, so you might have done your captchas. Hopefully you passed the check that you are human, and we can click on login. So when you log in, it automatically takes you to your applicant dashboard, but I'm just going to show everybody this. At the bottom left, when I first started using the system, this was not very intuitive, but there's just this little button that helps drag this toolbar on the left. If you just click that, you see how these symbols are enlarged and you can actually see what these symbols mean. Please just remember to click that. It helps you navigate the site, especially as a first-time user. So when you're on the site, this is kind of what the main SAHRA site looks like. So it's just the landing page. You'll see that there are interesting articles. There's even a site search function here. There are some issues with the GIS here that Jake and his team are working on, but there's even other information like these heritage route things. So it's a cool little landing page. And again, just a link towards sending tickets towards the SAHRIS NIU team if you're experiencing issues with the system. So this is just what it looks like on the baseline. I hope most of you are following along. So what I'm going to do now is just expand on what Jake has said, and I'd rather be more detailed and cover less right now, and maybe have another session where we can cover other things in more detail rather than trying to cover too much right now. So we're going to focus on just some detailed things that from our side at HWC we think will be useful to the user base that's actually in this meeting today. So you'll see that there are quite a few things that you can do here. I'm actually just going to work up from the bottom, and that kind of makes sense from a logic flow reason. So this help page is just, again, it's about these tickets and things. If you click there, it'll show you that you can, send a ticket. And there's this thing called the SAHRIS archive. So for those of you that understood the previous SAHRIS system, what's now being called sort of SAHRIS V1, this is just a link to that archive. So again, you can click on it and it'll take you to the old system, but I'm not going to focus too much on that right now. It's just to show you where to access that kind of stuff. There's also a private messaging function. So with the private messaging function, SAHRIS isn't really built as a social media platform, a messaging platform, but there is this functionality built into it. So you can actually use it for that. Again, I won't go into too much detail, but you can click on create a private message, and you can even link it to a case. And I'm not going to go into too much detail here because it's not too important for everyone, but there is this kind of functionality built in that will have implications in future use examples where you have, say, conservation bodies that might need to communicate and they want their communications linked to a case. So there's all of this kind of functionality built in, and that messaging function can also be accessed here at the bottom, this little green messaging tab, where you can just kind of click, and then let's say if I want to send Jake a message, I can type his name, click on it, and my chat with him will pop up, and I can send him a message. So that kind of stuff exists on the system as well. Groups. So the group function here, you'll see that as a user, you can see My Groups and Meeting Explorer. So groups are essentially just a way for SAHRIS to assign content to a group. So there are quite a few reasons for that. Jake mentioned one of the main things is also to ensure that there's a bit of a security check. So the groups function is used to also assign security clearances. So for example, as an HWC case officer, I'll be able to see more information than a general user would because the content is linked to Heritage Western Cape's case officers. Groups is also a function that in the future we envision it to be used for committee members. So if, let's say, an impact assessment committee, they'll have a group assigned thing, and then content can be assigned to them, and they can also review cases on the system. We also envision it to be used for things like conservation bodies. It is a bit of a pipeline, but we hope that in the near future, and these are discussions that we are having with Jake and his team, it's this idea that when an application is actually lodged on SAHRIS, instead of always having to go to the conservation bodies directly, there will be a link where it is, if the application is lodged within an area of interest of a conservation body, or it's a type of heritage resource that's linked to a conservation body that's registered with Heritage Western Cape, they'll actually get a notification via SAHRIS that an application has been lodged in their interest, in their area of interest, or their category of heritage interest, and they can lodge their comments via the system. So it really is this move towards a sort of a one-stop shop for heritage. We really want to try and streamline this process from a national side, and then obviously make the HWC system fit into that. Again, these are functionalities that aren't there yet, but they're sort of these pipeline exploration things to get us there. But yeah, that's just a quick overview of the group function. You can also have meetings, and there is another reason for that, because you get special links that you can use to access content, but we're not going to cover that now. What I want to cover with you, though, are these two things, which I think are quite important. So the mapping thing. So when you hover over it, you'll see that there are quite a few different kinds of maps that exist. So I'm going to start a bit randomly by starting with a paleo map, because most of us are familiar with the paleo mapping. So the paleo map is the paleosensitivity map that was compiled many moons ago by the Council for Geoscience. And it's just to kind of indicate, as the practitioners would know, what the chances are for an area having high paleosensitivity, and it's quite well explained here. So for those of you that have submitted the Section 38 applications before, I'm just switching to our website that details what we actually require. So one of our old requirements was this idea that we need a paleosensitivity map from SAHRIS to process a Section 38 NID. Because of the way that the paleo map works, this is now on SAHRIS, so you don't actually need to submit that anymore. And you'll see the same applies to topographical maps. SAHRIS has a built-in topographical layer, so we no longer have those as minimum requirements for when people submit NIDs, but I'll touch on that a little bit later. But yeah, you have this paleo map, and please try and play with it. It is a great resource, and what you can do with it is just, when you go to the map function, there are these layers, and you can switch what your background looks like if you like a satellite view, if you want to see the topo. But yeah, you can actually just click the paleo on or off there, and it even has these sort of other things. There's more functionality built in, but just to show you what you can do with the paleo map. Then the other maps that are quite important, the cases and reports map. So this is a map that is fantastic if you're doing research. I just want to caution everybody that at the moment, a lot of the HWC cases and reports are not on SAHRIS yet. Again, we have initiated the process of discussing this with SAHRIS, how to get a lot of our registry files, because HWC goes back to just a few years after the NAR was promulgated. So we have a lot of cases that still need to get uploaded to the system. However, there are quite a few cases, as you can see, but it can be quite overwhelming and confusing to navigate this, this map. So the way that I use it, so let's just say, I'm just going to use a random example, but you can see the last 10 logged heritage cases here where they're logged. So you'll see these little, I'm just going to turn that off, and you can actually see these little blue dots where cases have been logged, which is kind of interesting if you just want to sort of keep your finger on the pulse of what's been happening in terms of applications. But the more interesting thing to me would be these two things. So let's say I'm working in the general sort of Strand area, and I'm interested in previous heritage impact assessments that might have been conducted here. So let's say I'm here near this area at the Boskloof Eco Estate, and I see this map ID being displayed 020860. I can type that in here. Then I can click apply. So apologies, I think I just read that number wrong. Let me just zoom in again. If you zoom in, you can see different map IDs. So let's just use this one, 02934. And you can see that map ID is linked to this area, and then you'll get the kind of heritage reports that are associated with that. It's just being a little bit slow right now. I'm assuming there's quite a bit of traffic on the system. We'll try one of the other ones just to try and get that to work. Okay, it seems to not be wanting to work right now. I'll see if one of the others might work. But okay, the point here is that if you want to see a heritage report, you can type in these numbers. I'll just go to an area here again, just try once more. I don't know, Jake, if you know why the system might not be loading those right now. It seems a little bit slow to me. I also see a case ID. I'll just try one of those instead. Okay, the system doesn't seem to be working. Jake, if I could just ask you to check why that might not be working right now, and then we'll get back to that. But some of the other functionality that exists here is, yeah, so you have an all sites map, and I just want to say that there are some issues with the GIS functionality at the moment, and it's not just this thing that I'm trying to show you right now. Unfortunately, this was working really well last night when I was just testing it, and now it doesn't want to work. But you have this thing for the all sites map. And as you can see, there's a bit of an issue where there aren't only 44 or 45 sites in South Africa, there are multiple ones. So the recommendation here at the moment, until this GIS issue is sorted, is to actually use the sites function when looking for sites. So there are multiple ways of using the sites function. The main two things to use are Site Explorer and Site Listing. So Site Listing displays the sites in, as Jay called it, structured data, where you can actually read it this way, because the information that you might have might help you search for. So let's say, for example, we're in the Western Cape and we're interested in any kind of site that might be in the central Karoo around Laingsburg, and it'll filter it down that way. And then you can see those sites in the structured data way. On the map function, when you actually filter it down, it tends to display it a bit better. So if we use that same approach here, where we're looking for those same sites in the central Karoo near Laingsburg, and you click apply, the map will display those, but they'll be split over 2 pages. So if you just zoom in, you can actually see the sites that are recorded, and you can go to the second page to just see the other one. So this GIS isn't able to display all of the sites at once. But as I said, please just try use the site function when doing that kind of research. I find the Sites Explorer tab to be quite intuitive compared to the site listing one, if any of you prefer using that. And I'll just show you some of the great functionality there. So again, let's say we're looking at sites within that same area. So we go Western Cape. We click on Central Karoo, and we click on Laingsburg, and we click on Apply. You will see some of the sites displayed here. And the nice thing is that you can add media to the site recordings, and you can see some of them. So here, for example, let's say we have this burial ground near the N1 upgrade by Mikey'sfontein. So if you actually click on this, it'll take you to the site tab. And as Jake had those little snapshots in his presentation, here you can see the landing page for the site. So it'll tell you some information like the category being a burial ground and a grave, who actually recorded it, when it was posted on SAHRIS, the mapping of where it's located, a quick little GIS snapshot here. And again, there is this layering function where you can see things like topography in the area. There's all these great functionalities built into SAHRIS. And then the interesting thing is people will field grade these resources when they're recording them. So in this example, we have this burial ground grave being graded 3A in 2018, and who actually graded it, and then who actually has submitted that grading. And yeah, when media is associated with it, so you can actually open it up and you can see some of the photos from the site, which is just fantastic in terms of heritage resource management. I'm sure that those of you that work in the industry can understand just how powerful a tool this is. And then you have extra tabs here for the sites, like the archaeology bits where there'll be some extra information recorded. This one doesn't have too much information, but just gives you an idea of what's available. So as I said, that all sites map isn't working as well as it should be right now, but it will hopefully work well. And then with the case and reports map, I think, Jake, you can just confirm for me, yeah, if maybe it's just the volume on the system. Okay, so yeah, most of the users are using the map at the same time, so it's just making it a bit slow, as Jake said. So he said I should just search a specific case ID right now. So just to show you what this might look like. Yeah, the map just seems to be a bit slow because most people are on it right now, which is fine. This is the point of these kind of exercises, so that from SAHRA side, they can also learn, okay, there's a big user base from HWC side, and we can also improve how this works. So yeah, this isn't working exactly how we want it to work, but the idea is just you can see some of the stuff here, and you can actually go into the examples that start coming up, but I'll show you a better way to do that now. So with the maps, I've already covered these three, and then these are the other interesting ones. So the national heritage sites, these maps are working really well, and you can actually see all the heritage sites that have accurate GIS data that are declared are being shown on these two sites in terms of national and provincial declarations. I just wanted to note that the GIS data has not been recorded yet because some of them are old national monuments. But for those that are recorded there, the display works really well on the map, so you can go and explore some of these. So for example, if you go into Cape Town and you look at some of the national heritage sites, as Jake's slide showed you, the castle, for example, sits here. And again, you can go into that to see some more information about it. And there's lots of great information that you can gather from this. So let's say you're interested in when was this actually declared, you can go to the declaration and you can actually open that declaration over here and see that SAHRA declared this a National Heritage Site in 2016. And it was also an old national monument. And again, the declaration can be found here. It was one of the first national monuments declared, actually. So just again, great functionality that exists here. And again, more information on the sites and just how to explore and use that. On the provincial side, the GIS thing is not great right now. There is a process happening at the moment from SAHRA side. I know that the NIU team I believe they're currently working in the Free State to get the provincial heritage sites in the Free State sorted, and eventually they'll get to assisting us with the sites in Heritage Western Cape, remit in terms of the Western Cape. But yeah, the map shows some of them, but not all of them. So again, the best way to explore them, though, is to just go to the sites function instead of the map one, go to the declared sites bit, and then through the declared sites bit, what you can do here is just filter it by Western Cape. And now you can actually see all the sites within the Western Cape that are declared. And let's say we're specifically looking for provincial heritage sites, so section 27, provincial heritage sites, you can find them this way. So Jake used the Palmerston School example, which is one of the more recent declarations. And I'll just quickly open that. And here you can see, again, this great GIS data about where it's located, the significance being explained. Again, the grading of grade to when all of this was loaded, the declaration explained, and then you can always scroll down to the bottom of that and get the PDF of the actual declaration, which you can see here. So Friday, 18 July, this declaration, the actual Gazette notice. So all this information is out there and it is incredibly useful. And yeah, there's media here. So for those of you that want to do research in the space, this is fantastic, especially those of you that are trying to look at previous studies and things. I think Jake's also just mentioned that heritage reports are uploaded without being part of the group and publicly visible. So what Jake is just explaining there is just in terms of the content allocation stuff. So processing officers can see content, and I'll get to the section 38 bit where I'll just show you the difference in terms of what you as an applicant can see versus what the officers might be able to see in the background. But I just want to finish off going over these things quickly. So yeah, we have these different maps, and then you have the sites. So Jake also touched on this idea of creating a site, and you also have sort of field observations. Again, I'm not going to touch on this. Please go and explore these functionalities. They really are fantastic. But in terms of the create site thing, I'll just touch on this briefly because Jake alluded to some interesting things. So when you're creating it, you can assign it to a group. So let's say you're part of an organization like eCrag where you're recording rock art. You could have a group created on SAHRIS for eCrag, and then you can assign this content saying it was recorded by the eCrag group. And then you can have all this kind of information captured here. There's lots of information that you can capture. And there's not just this sort of one point location. There's also this functionality with detailed mapping. And this is something that I highly encourage many of you to use. It's a great tool that's been built into SAHRIS. where you can actually sort of create your own data. So let's say we're interested in an area over here, and you can actually use these things to create them. So let's say we're interested in this little area over here. You can just draw it yourself. You can even add some text to it to better describe the site. There's this detailed mapping thing, and I highly recommend people to just go out and play with the system and learn how to use it properly. So there's lots of fun stuff like this built in. But in terms of what people might be interested in from this user group, I highly recommend, just looking at the site explore and listing thing and just using the map as a guide, because the GIS function isn't working perfectly right now. In terms of objects, I won't go into objects too much. Most of that falls with museums and sort of SAHRIS remit. From our side, we usually process Section 35 applications when it's destruction applications on archaeological objects or something, and you will need to create an object for that, but we don't need to go into detail with that now. The more interesting thing that I think people might be here for would be this bit where we get to applications. So I'm going to jump into this in quite a bit of detail now. I think it's important for those of you that are part of oversight. As I said, there might be some of you that have clients that are interested in understanding where that process is, and this is a great way of explaining how you can better communicate with your clients. So what we'll do is we'll start by just showing you, if you go back to this page, so this is your little profile on the right where you can edit it and view it and things, but you also have this thing called a dashboard. So the dashboard, you'll see that it says applicant dashboard. If you are a heritage practitioner, you submitted a case and you go into your applicant dashboard, you will see cases that you've submitted and these forms that you have submitted. In terms of these forms, this is something that I really wanted to highlight because it's a query that I got from multiple practitioners around June, July when we were cleaning up this process. They were interested in saying, I have a client who wants some oversight before I actually submit. Previously, I could send my filled-in form to them, but with SAHRIS, there's no way for them to really see the form, is there? And there actually is. So let's say here's my case. So as you can see, this is the case that I've created. And my case has this form over here. So this is the form submission that I have made. And this form, when you open it, you can see that it has a node ID. So that node ID is actually linked to your dashboard over here. So if you go here, you'll see all the submissions that you have made. And this specific one's ID is 38132, this case. So I can go to 38132 here, and you'll see this thing called link to token. So if you go on link to token, you can actually, this link is a special link that anybody can use, but only you are the one that has this thing set up. So let's say that I'm a heritage practitioner and I've been contracted by an EAP to do a project. They just want to make sure they're happy with the information that I'm submitting on my form. Once I have filled in the form, I can then grab this link, so copy the link address, and then anybody whom you distribute this link to, and this is a safety thing again, just make sure you only distribute it to the people that need to see it. So here you can see I've just gone into what's called an incognito tab. So this is a new tab. I'm not logged into SAHRIS here whatsoever. And I can paste that link here. And I will actually have access now to not edit, but just to see the information that's captured there. And I think this is an incredibly important thing for those of you that might have clients that want a bit of oversight. I think especially, I note that, we had a DOI session last week, the Department of Infrastructure, and a lot of them also have project managers working on these big projects that might want some heritage oversight. So they could use this function as well. When talking to the heritage practitioners, you might say, can you please send that secure link to me? So this is a way that you can just see that. That's some important functionality. And the applicant dashboard, again, please just play with the system and see what works for you. There's different ways of displaying all of this information, but it exists there to improve things. When you actually go to applications here, you'll see that there's a make an application. And when we come back after our short break, we'll dive into this in terms of the Section 38 form, but you'll also see these other things. So the case is V1 Explorer. V1, we're referring to old SAHRIS. So this is just to see what cases might have been logged on the older SAHRIS. And then the cases explorer here is the current cases on SAHRIS. So I'll just quickly glance over this to show everybody what this looks like, because I think this is, again, functionality that's important for oversights. So if you go into Cases Explorer, and we'll answer questions at the end, but yeah, if you go into Cases Explorer, let's say that you know that an application has been submitted to Heritage Western Cape, so you can filter it by Heritage Authority. As I said, the DOI just now, let's say it's some kind of road upgrade, so we know that road will be in the title of the case, and you're just kind of curious to know what the status is. So when you click Apply, the list of cases that are on SAHRIS will get filtered down to anything that has road in the case title that's been submitted to HWC. And you'll see that here are quite a few examples of cases that meet those criteria. You can see the case ID here, the titles, the date that it was submitted, who the applicants actually were, who the case officers that's assigned to it, and the case status. So before I actually go into the case to show you some things, the case status here, you'll see that there's some things that say under authority review. Some might say closed approved, some say on agenda. You'll even see a closed withdrawn every now and again. What this is referring to is the status of where the case is sitting in terms of processing. So when a case is submitted, this will say submitted instead of something like under authority review. So we at HWC are working quite quickly. Once a case is submitted, usually within 1 or 2 days, it gets allocated to a case officer, and then the case officer will check the case for completeness. Once it's allocated to a case officer, you'll see the case status change to under authority review. So under authority review just means that the case officer is checking it for completeness. So they're basically checking in terms of are the minimum criteria being met? For example, is the proof of payment showing the correct reference number? All that kind of stuff. So once the case officer has deemed that it is complete, they'll change it to on agenda, and it will be tabled at the next available Heritage Officers meetings, which usually happen weekly on a Monday. But if it is not complete, the status will actually change to returned to applicant, and you'll get an email from the case officer just explaining what's missing. I saw a quick question now, and I will actually answer that. How long does the review take? So generally, the review will take about a week. In some cases, when we are busier with applications, it can take 10 days. Legally, we have 14 days to actually do that, but we tend to be a bit quicker. But you can usually expect to hear back from the case officer once it has been allocated to them within about a week or 10 days. But yeah, we legally have 14 days to respond to NIDs, according to the NARA. But yeah, you'll see this closed approved is essentially the title that you'll see when, let's say, either no further studies has been requested. So we're saying that we, in terms of 38.2, we are 38.2 of the Act, we are saying that no further studies are required. So you'll get the comment or the decision from the applicant saying that it's been closed approved. And I'll actually maybe just go into one of these. So here you'll see a closed approved application. And the way that it works is here you can see again the GIS mapping on this application, a quick description of what the application is like. And this is the great thing, you can actually see the RODs and permits. This is available to the public, so there's a lot of transparency with this. Anybody can actually come in here and check this out. So you can actually see here that Heritage Western Cape issued a final comment. And this is that final comment that Heritage Western Cape issued, saying that we believe that this specific thing will have no impacts on Heritage Resources, so no further action is required in terms of Section 38. So this is just some basic oversight tools that are built into SAHRIS that I believe will be incredibly useful for those of you that are interested in oversight. The Cases Explorer function, again, is quite varied, and there's lots of ways to filter cases. You can also see other heritage authorities. There are even cross-border applications that exist, and you'll see that there are multiple authorities assigned to them. We are working with SAHRA at the moment to improve this kind of stuff. So here you can see, for example, a cross-border application that exists. And yeah, you'll just, like I said, just focus on this case data stuff, and you'll be able to learn a lot of information. The other interesting thing that I think will be applicable to a few of you, because we have our Heritage Officers meetings weekly, we usually release our agendas on the Thursday or the Friday. And then a lot of you that are interested in certain areas might want to join HOMS, but the only information you have is that, a NID might have been submitted in an area that you work in. So we've had people join and sit in HOMS waiting for that case to come up, and then it's actually not something that interests them. It might not be something that's that relevant to them. because of the way that SAHRIS works, you can actually now see what's on the agenda coming up at the next sort of Heritage Officers meeting. And let's say here's one that says on agenda, for example. You can actually just quickly go into this and see if this is actually something that you are interested in, whether it's worth your while as an interested and affected party to attend that committee meeting. So I really think that this is important for people to just use, again, play with the system. I have seen a few of you in the meeting today that actually join our HOMS meetings weekly, and you are interested in certain areas. Here you can actually use the system, see if it's worth your while to actually sit in on that HOMS based on what you're seeing here. So that is just a very brief overview of the Cases Explorer function. And the last thing that I want to touch on before we take a quick little 5-minute breather is just the search function. So there is the search function. And when I first started working on this new version of SAHRIS, I relied a lot on the search function, and it works quite well, but try rather, if you know what kind of content you're looking for, if it is a site, for example, if it is a PHS, rather go through the declared sites route. If it is an application that you're looking for, rather go through the Cases Explorer route. The search function works, but it isn't Google exactly. So just a word of caution, because my instinct when I first used SAHRIS as a user was to use the search function quite a lot. But that's just a very basic overview of some of the functionality of SAHRIS here. I'm just going to try this once more just to see if the case thing might work, because I just want to show you how you can find heritage reports in certain areas. So again, we'll just kind of zoom in on one of these areas and try and find something with a map ID. So let's go to Still Bay. So let's say in Still Bay, you can see that there are 2 cases that were lodged here. The map is being a little bit slow for me. Okay, great. So here it's now finally working. So here you can see, so when you search that map ID, when you zoom into the area of interest and you see that there's this map ID or possibly a case ID, what might happen is when you search that using this top tool, it'll say map ID and the number there, or if it doesn't have a map ID, then it's the case ID. So you can just type in whichever one of those you want there, and it'll bring you up some information like this. So this is a heritage report for that area, and you can actually access that heritage report here. So it is quite an old one, but the idea here is you can now access all the reports. And as Jake mentioned, the idea here is you have a collection management system, you have a heritage site repository, which all comes together in this integrated heritage management systems. So you can actually go and check out some of these reports. But as I said, most of the Heritage Western Cape ones are not completely on the system yet, but there will be a process of transferring those on the system so that all of this is a bit better worked in, so that everybody actually has access. And overall, yeah, we have a better integrated heritage management system. So that kind of covers the basic uses of these tools that are available on SAHRIS. I hope I was slow enough that many of you could follow me along with that. What we're going to do now is maybe just take a quick 5-minute break. We'll return at, say, 10:25, and then we can jump into the section 38 application, and I'll slowly just walk you through that because that is now currently live on SAHRIS, and if you want to submit a NID to HWC, that is the only way to do it. And then obviously following reports from that, such as work plans or heritage impact assessments, I'll also just briefly touch on how you can submit those. But yeah, that gives you a very brief overview, and yeah, I'll see you all at 10:25. And the questions that have been asked in the chat, they are noted, and some are being answered now, but we will answer most of those at the end when we get to our 1-hour Q&A session. Thank you so much.